She's not what you'd expect. She's tough and feisty, but gentle and tender. She makes millions and gives millions to the poor. She cries, she laughs, she teaches, she comforts. This is the Dani Johnson Show.
Hey, it's Mikhah Johnson. This is day 6. Today we're going to be taking baptisms in the Jordan River, and we're also going to go to Cursi, where Jesus performed the miracle of the swines. After that, we're going to go to sail on the Sea of Galilee.
In the book of Kings 2, chapter 5, is exactly that case. Where Naaman, the master of the army, the general of the army of Aram, which was a mighty hero, but had severe leprosy, skin disease. And he's been told by people that there's a prophet that can help him. The prophet name is Elisha. And he tells him, go to him, and he will cure your leprosy, he will help you. And what does Elisha tell him? I'm not going to do anything to you.
That's right.
Just go to the river Jordan and immerse yourself, not baptize, immerse yourself 7 times in the river Jordan. And Naaman looks at him and says, what? I have better rivers, cleaner, bigger, up in Syria.
Yeah.
The Euphrates, the Tigris, Amnan Farfar, that go through Damascus. Forget about it, I'll just dip in my rivers. But I told him, no, listen to what Elisha tells you. Do that. And he goes, eventually he has nothing to lose. He follows through. He goes to the river Jordan and he immerses himself 7 times. That's why some of the people ask, how do you do mikveh? So besides what Dani was saying, to immerse yourself completely underwater, how many times, what you said, there's all kind of ideas to it. I usually, when I do it 7 times. Why? Probably because of this. There's 7 good times under the water. Connect to that feeling. Think of what you want to be healed. Physically, spiritually, anything you have. And that power, not just of the river, of everything that happened here, and of the Father healing you. That's what happened here. And after Naaman did it, again, nothing to lose. Imagine the biggest famous general in his times going to this Jewish prophet Elisha. That a couple of weeks earlier, the river split before him and Eliyahu. He does it. And then there's a profound thing that comes out of his mouth. We're talking about a Gentile, an idol worshiper, someone that never knew the God of Israel.
Yes.
And what does he say? Let's read that verse.
Verse what?
After that happens, and Naaman goes and does it. This is in verse 14. Let's read
Chapter 5, 2 Kings, chapter 5, verse 14.
Verse 14. וירד ויטבול בירדן 7 פעמים כדבר איש האלוהים, וישב בשרו כבשר נער קטן ויטהר.
Then he went down and dipped 7 times in the Jordan, according to the word of the man of Elohim, and his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean.
וישב אלישע אלוהים הוא וכל מחנהו, ויבוא ויעמדו לפניו ויאמר הננה ידעתי כי אין אלוהים בכל הארץ כי אם בישראל, ועתה כך נא ברכה מאת עבדך.
And he returned to the man of Elohim, he and all his company, and came and stood before him and said, see now, I know that there is no Elohim in all the earth except in Israel. And now please take a gift from your servant.
Which he refused. I get the chills when I read it, I get the chills now when I hear it. A Gentile, a celebrity, a general, the most famous celebrity general in the region that doesn't know the God of Israel, comes to this river. The same river that split in front of Joshua, the same river that split in front of Eliyahu and Elisha, the same river that 700 years later, Yeshua will be baptized here in this river. And he does the mikveh 7 times, gets healed, and knows the God of Israel. God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's where you can really know the Father. You'll feel it spiritually, physically. So think of it, when you do the mikveh, You don't need anybody to baptize you, as Dani was saying. You do it yourself. You go in, you can immerse once or 7 times if you want, and be healed and cured and cleaned. It's about cleaning, but not clean in terms of clean or dirty. It's about purifying. I hope you're all going to get that amazing feeling here today in the River Jordan, exactly in the same time of year where the Israelites crossed the River Jordan, the eve of Passover.
You're about to do the very same thing that the Israelites were told to do before they would hear God. 3 days, go consecrate yourselves. There was an immersion as well. Consecrate yourselves, wash yourselves, prepare yourselves. It's exactly what John the Baptist was saying. Prepare ye the way of the Lord. So all of this comes together right now. You have the opportunity to do that. And if you want someone to baptize you, ask someone next to you. But if it is that important to you, I'm just removing myself from this situation. Why? There's idolatry in ourselves, man. And unfortunately, people idolize people. And I don't want to have any parts. Amen. I don't want any part of that. None. Thank you. So, I'm stepping aside. I'm gonna witness God immersing His children. I'm gonna witness our Father doing with you what He has done with me.
I literally can't believe that I'm here where all those miracles happen in the Bible.
It feels like it's about 80 degrees. I have goosebumps, a coolness on the surface of my skin. Words that you only read in black and white suddenly turn into color. Something so brown yet so clean.
Getting ready, just to feel his presence deeper.
There's going to be miracles happening today.
The flesh so desires for us to make everything about ourselves. It's not. Everything we do should honor and glorify Him. The flesh just fights that all the time with the pride and the ego and it's not about me. It's not about me. It's about Him. Yeah, this has been one of my most anticipated moments.
How was that?
Overflowing joy. He is a good, safe place.
I'm having a big father-daughter moment right now. Yeah, I'm his bride. I'm his queen. That was amazing. Yeah. I wish everyone could feel this feeling.
We've had some, challenging years through our marriage, and so we wanted to do it together and have a new beginning.
There's no words.
I would like for you to go with me. Amen. Oh, you got it.
What's going on, Angelina?
I didn't obey God. He asked if I wanted him to go with me, and I told him no. And God says, no, you take him with you. And I felt the presence of Josh, him sitting in the place of Josh, my son.
Wow.
Woo! Yes! Woo! Woo!
We just went in there as sisters, and we went underneath 4 times. One for our parents, one for our siblings, one for Madison, and then one for ourselves. Giving is just giving all of our family to God, and we come up and it's off of us.
What was that like doing that together?
Oh, amazing. He prayed for stability, and he didn't use the handrail to come up.
It was incredible. It was awesome.
What about doing it together? What happened?
That's something very few, I guess, can say that they've done. But just to be literally in the same place as our Messiah, to do what he did, literally in the exact same location with your spouse, that's a moment you won't forget, ever.
Well, we've done so many things separate for so long, so to finally be on the same page at this level in such a powerful way together, it shows the new season that's ahead. And so I'm really excited about that.
I actually went in with her and did it together, and then I came out and started seeing all my uncleanness myself. And it's like the Lord said, go back in. I said, that's embarrassing. Go back in. He said, go back in, Dave. So I've studied the scriptures for 40 years and just...
You're a pastor.
Yeah, and I knew but never connected all the times that the miracles happen in the Jordan River.
So new bride and groom. How's that starting off your marriage with a little dip in the Jordan?
Amazing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah?
Absolutely amazing.
What happened?
Lots of healing.
Yes.
Being completely cleansed. Ready for our new life and the promises that God has given us.
You know, I'm the kind of girl that would probably say, yeah, it's probably not the best water to submerge yourself in. But when you're looking to be free, there's not anything that you would do to keep you from getting to that freedom. Yeah. Whether it dip in the muddy Jordan or what have you. It's pretty amazing.
Well, we had an opportunity to renew our faith in the Jordan. And in that water, we each had our own individual experience, and I'm so thankful for Dani for stepping out of it and allowing us to experience it in our own way. Ask one of our new found family members for help, or each other, and just experience God's grace in our own way. Like, I saw redemption in that water. I saw healing in that water. I saw people let go of things in that water. And like, I'm losing the words because it's such an emotional experience. And it's such a personal experience.
It's like really profound that this is just a place of all nations, you know what I mean? So to see Muslims across the way watching with big smiles on their faces and just seeing the peace that was even on them, like they were in the moment, and then to have a whole Filipino group come, and a Chinese group come, an African group come, a Russian group come. He really is a unifier, and it's man that is a divider. We create these dividing lines where we're all supposed to unite under him, and then we fight over doctrine, you know, what's the right way to baptize and who can and who can't, just all of these crazy things everyone fights over. But man, when you're down there at the Jordan and you're seeing all these different ways,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
But they're all, the bottom line is whatever the way is really doesn't matter. It's that there's
him.
And they're connecting to him. And that's what it's about. It's not about our ways that we go about doing that. It's about connecting with him.
Yeah.
So, which is why I don't want to be in the water with him. I don't want to be the last thing I don't want to be something they remember in that moment in the Jordan as they're meeting with God. Like,
yeah.
I want them to feel his presence by themselves, so they never think that it's somebody that brought the presence with them. No, his desire is his presence would be on us, that we would all feel his spirit, not a certain chosen 1 or 2 or 20 or 100 or 1,000. It's like all. He wants all of us to feel his love.
Yeah.
It's so powerful to watch. Now the second time of being in the Jordan. It's actually my third time. And seeing him do it every single time, and to see people meet him like that is...
As we were walking in, Jamie was asking me, well, where's the cliff? Right, this is the church. Where's the cliff? Well, there's the cliff right up there. Quite a steep cliff. And that's where the story, according to the tradition, took place.
And when he came to the other side, to the country of the Girgashites, 2 demon-possessed ones met him, coming out of tombs, very fierce, so that no one was able to pass that way. And see, they cried out, saying, "What have we to do with you, Yeshua, son of Elohim? Have you come here to torture us before the appointed time?" And at a distance from them, there was a herd of many pigs feeding. And the demons begged him, saying, "If you cast us out, send us into the herd of pigs." And he said to them, "Go." And they, coming out, went into the herd of pigs, and see, the entire herd of pigs rushed down the steep place into the sea and died in the water. And the herdsmen fled and went away into the city and reported all of this and about those possessed by demons. And see, all the city came out to meet Yeshua, and when they saw him, they begged him to leave their borders. Get out of here! Well, the pigs were their money, right? That was that man's currency. So he just lost all his dough. For sure. For sure. But how many of you, God has delivered you of something? Look at those hands, dude.
Wow.
So this is where we see him as the deliverer, right? This is where he's the deliverer. And there's nothing like being possessed by demons and being set free in a moment. You know what I mean? Wrestling, whether it was with fear or some kind of sickness or pornography or perversion, depression, suppression, oppression, greed. I've been delivered of so many things by him. And to think that if he had not walked into my life and walked into our lives, right? We think about the things that we still would be wrestling with. So I think it was really interesting that whenever demons were talked about in the New Testament, it was like it's normal. Hey, how you doing? That guy has a demon. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just normal, common knowledge. Like, there's these two guys, they have a demon. Like, oh, so did you have coffee this morning? Like, you know what I mean? It didn't seem the way that it's talked about like it was an unusual thing. Yet we live in a time and come from various different types of churches where it's like, hush, hush, no one ever talks about that kind of thing. And so when I seen that, I mean, I've watched tens of thousands of people be delivered of demons. And to see what their life is on the other side of that is just so completely profound. So here, I mean, right over there, two men get freed. I want you to think of the time of when you were wrestling with something and you didn't even know that it was a demon. Didn't even know that that's what you're being tormented by or being controlled by. Like your every waking moment, every thought that you have, just being totally consumed by something that you don't want to be consumed by. Yeah, I've got so many stories for me personally on that. But he's our deliverer, man. So where are we going now?
I think we're going to
the Sea of Galilee.
the Sea of Galilee.
And he was speaking to them without parables, and when they were alone, he explained all to his taught ones. And on the same day, when evening had come, he said to them, "Let us pass over to the other side." They were right at the foot, over here. I think it was on that side, right? Over here. And he wanted to pass over to this side. And having left the crowd, they took him along in a boat as he was. And other little boats were also with him. And there came a great windstorm, and the waves beat into the boat, so that it was already being filled. And he was in the stern, asleep on a cushion, and they woke him up and said to him, "Teacher, is it no concern of you that we perish?" And having been awakened, he rebuked the wind and the sea. "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. So good. And he said to them, "Why are you so afraid? Have you not yet belief?" And they feared exceedingly and asked each other, "Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" notice so many times throughout the scriptures when we're following Yeshua's life that he slipped away from the crowds. That he went, got away from the people for quiet time. And it would be out like this. Let's just get out on a boat, hear the wind, hear the water. Time of stillness. We are a culture of doers. And in our doing, we drain ourselves. And when you drain yourselves to a place of empty, you have nothing but rust on the bottom of your container to give out. So I'm so proud of you guys. You're allowing yourself to be refreshed today. Truly, a reset at the Jordan. Out here, a refreshing. Like the same wind that was going across his face and all the people at that time. Now for that favorite story. And having dismissed the crowds, he went up to the mountain by himself to pray. And when evening had come, he was alone. But the boat was now in the middle of the sea, agitated by the waves, for the wind was against it. In the fourth watch of the night, Yeshua went to them walking on the sea. And when the taught ones saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, "It's a phantom." And from fear they cried. But immediately Yeshua spoke to them, saying, "Take courage. It is I. Do not be afraid." Kepha, which is Peter, answered him and said, "Master, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." And he said, "Come." And when Kepha had come down out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Yeshua. But when he saw that the wind was strong, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, "Master, save me." And immediately Yeshua stretched out his hand and took hold of him and said to him, "O you of little belief, why do you doubt?" When they came into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat came and did bow to him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of Elohim." And having passed over, they came to the land of Gennesaret. And when the men of that place recognized him, they sent out into all the surrounding country and brought to him all who were sick and begged him to let them only touch the tzitzit of his garment. You know your talit? The tassels. That's what they touched. That's the literal translation. Tzitzit, those are the tassels from his garment. And as many as touched it were completely healed. What kind of things will you leave right here? What kind of doubts do you have that you want to leave here, that you don't want to take home with you? Doubts about yourself? And what is it that you allow yourself to doubt? In Peter's case, it was the water. He allowed the water. He allowed his eyes, what he could see, instead of keeping his eyes focused on the one leading him out in faith. He focused on his circumstances, what was around him. So just maybe ask God right now, like, what doubt? What doubt do I have that I carried with me all these years needs to stay here? And when I get off this boat, I'm going to choose not to doubt in this place anymore. How many of you have had some doubts shattered since you've been here? So what's the next one that you'll lay before him and say, I'm going to trust you, regardless of what my circumstances are?
Just to know that Jesus walked on water there, and we were there. And then we enjoyed an amazing ceremony with a couple who was with us with their 2 kids that celebrated their 23rd wedding anniversary, and the blessings that we were able to pour over them. But again, watching the sky and the amazing colors and the display that he did for us, but then just, it was angels. It was absolutely just breathtaking. And then we broke bread together and had an amazing evening.
And Yeshua, walking by the Sea of Galilee, saw 2 brothers, Shimon, called Kepha, and Andri.
And why was that? Just to understand the context. Right over here. Remember, the lake was a little higher. Now it's in its low time for the past decade or so. The village never moved.
Right.
That's one of the confirmed sites. You'll see in a second the ruins and the house, the traditional place where the healing of Peter's mother-in-law took place. We'll read later on from Luke. And the synagogue has been the same synagogue, even though it had different reincarnations, different levels. But the village was here. It was a village of fishermen. The brothers lived here. Peter's mother-in-law. And they went to their boats to fish. And as they're walking on the shores, right where you're standing,
right here.
That's where Yeshua met them for the first time. Wow. Understand this.
Did you hear what he just said? Yeah. So where are you standing? Literally. Not perhaps somewhere in this area. The house is right behind you.
Unlike the Beatitudes, which were more in the area, not knowing exactly where he stood.
The house is right behind you.
If you walk between these 2 trees, you're definitely walking within the shore place where Jesus walked several times, because he lived here. This was his town, not Nazareth, which he was rejected from. He came and lived in Kfar Nahum, and that's where he also gathered the first disciples, where Dani's reading about, the 2 brothers, right over here on this shore. Please.
I think I've invited you guys to do this many times, but I would invite you to do it. One of the times when I started, almost like 10 years ago, when I started starting in Genesis, and I began to start reading the Bible like cover to cover, I had gotten to Abraham and noticed that God spoke differently to Abraham than he did Noah. And gems hit my head. I'm like, whoa. Wow, that is like such a trip. Like he spoke totally, Ruby, I will make you famous. Leave your father's house, you're gonna have more blessing than your father ever did. Leave, come and follow me. Yeah. But to Noah, it was a full-on emerald. I'm going to kill everybody. I am bringing judgment. Build me an ark. If he had picked a sapphire to build an ark, we would all be dead. Right? So anyway, but what it made me do and what I felt the Spirit lead me to do is I began to highlight every time God talked, and I highlighted it in a certain color. So then when I read the Bible through that time, every time God spoke, I highlighted it in pink. I don't know why. It's probably the only highlighter I had with me is why it was probably pink. And so every time he spoke, his word would be standing out. So then I would see when he's talking versus somebody who's prophesying versus a story that's being told. Do you understand? Yeah. So I learned how to hear his voice and how he talked to various different people and the style in which he spoke to those various different people. Then when I would come to the prophets, I then highlighted, can you hold that? Same thing with the prophets. So it kind of helps it to be really, really distinct when God is actually talking, right? So then when the angels would talk, it was a different color, right? And they're called messengers in Hebrew. Messengers, sometimes they're humans.
Right.
It says it. He looked like a man. It was a man that came and talked to me, right? So then there was the prayers. So when anyone was praying, I highlighted that in a different color. So every time I saw a voice talking, right? So then the prophets, whenever the prophets were saying, "Thus saith the Lord." So then that was a different color because that wasn't God's voice himself, but it was speaking through man. So I did that. And then whenever Satan said something, which is like very little, it's in Job. And then in the Gospels when he's tempting Jesus. That's it. That's it. Just crazy. Look how much credit Satan gets.
Yeah.
And he has like no voice. You can take a picture of it later.
That's amazing. That's really refining the
It
Bible.
totally refines it, and it helps you see when God is literally talking and how He talks and
That's
what
an
He
amazing way to
says.
teach the Bible and to...
Hello. Look, you'll see the places where He talks the most.
Wow.
That's Leviticus.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay. David, lots of prayers with David. Very little that God talks to him directly.
You should copyright that system, Rabbi.
You're right.
No, it's really...
That's right.
It's highlighting it's like crazy. Okay, let's read.
Look at that one.
Wow.
That's got God talking, prayers, angels, and the prophet. All on one page. That's definitely Zechariah.
No, I thought that's purple.
No. No. That was a mistake. A pink over the blue. So, yeah, no, that's not Satan talking. He didn't talk to Zechariah. Nor did Zechariah ever talk about him. He's barely talked about at all in the whole Bible. Barely ever talked about in the entire Bible. He's a nothing.
That's right.
We are the screw-ups. Okay, where are we? I'm sorry, guys. I woke up this morning knowing something crazy was going to be flying.
So Luke 4, 38.
Why don't you read it and keep me shut up, please? Go, Luke 38. Go.
So, first of all, where are we now? Again, the context, I'm re-emphasizing this. We are in Kfar Nahum. Just 200 feet south of us is the lake. Just 150 north of us is the synagogue, Bet HaKnesset, the place of the community gathering. And in between the houses. These were the remains of the houses, not this modern church built 30 years ago, which is floating over and represents or marks the place of house which is believed to be the house of Peter's mother-in-law. We're going to read later how Yeshua spoke in the synagogue, but I'm reading now from Luke chapter 4, verse 38. And he arose and left the synagogue. Where did he leave? Take a look. You can stand here and see the distance, the proximity. And he entered Simon's house. So he walks, what is this, 150 feet, not even? And he enters Simon's house. Where is Simon's house? Come on, take a look. It's highlighted through. Try to ignore these octagonal walls. You see there's a couple of walls here.
So the church was built over the house.
Right, in the Byzantine period. But the original walls are these. These walls, the basalt stone, rough walls, were the house. I assume that when such a great miracle of healing took place, you know how it is even in your community when you walk around? And you know that something happened? And people say, this is the intersection where that happened?
Yes.
So people talk about it and they know.
Right.
Or they'll put up a monument there.
Yes.
So it's very likely that 300 years later in the Byzantine period, 4th century, they marked the place and it went on from generation to generation.
Wow.
And everybody that lived in Kfar Nahum, because Kfar Nahum was a Jewish village, the synagogue kept on functioning as a synagogue. They kept on pouring money, renovating, expanding it. So people always pointed out to the children, oh, that's the house of Peter, and Peter's mother-in-law. What happened in this house? Let's read. So entered Simon's house. Now Simon's mother-in-law was ill with a high fever, and they appealed to him on her behalf. And he stood over her and rebuked the fever. And it left her, and immediately she rose and began to serve them. That's a fast transition. It's not just being sick with the fever in bed. Oh, I'm feeling okay now, thank you for helping me. But it's like 180 flip. I'm perfect and starting to serve them. Bring them out drinks and food, putting up a stove, bring some hot tea maybe for them. She's good. I'm all good. No more fever. Healing her. Now, when the sun was setting, all those who had any who were sick with various diseases brought them to him. And he laid his hands on every one of them and healed them. And demons also came out of many, crying, you are the Son of God. But he rebuked them and would not allow them to speak because they knew that he was the Christ. That's in this translation. Yours probably says
Messiah.
the anointed.
Yep.
The anointed, right?
Yep.
So, this is between the preaching of the synagogues. By the way, the paragraph before this and the paragraph after this talks about Jesus preaching in synagogue. Let's walk now, after you take a careful look at this, understanding that, by the way, that house, imagine this thing. I want to try to simplify it. Because always we think about Jesus, about the disciples. These were human beings walking these grounds, living this village, fishermen, simple people, and illness, which we encounter. His mother-in-law was not feeling well. She was ill. So they entered the house and he healed her. But right after that, people said, oh, there was someone that knows how to heal. You know how it is.
Yes.
Is there a doctor in the house?
Yes.
My father is a doctor.
Yeah.
Without even people knowing, doctor, I have this problem here and this problem here. Always looking for this free advice for someone to help them.
Yes. Yes.
Right? So he's in the house with his new friends that he just gathered over here. After he spoke to a small community, a couple of dozens, and I'll be hearing him read from the book of Isaiah 61. And then the word came out. He's a healer. And people always have problems. My back aches, my knee, I have this and that. So they start lining up the house. And he accepted them. And this became the house where he accepted them, the healer. And he starts healing them one by one. And that's how the word started to spread out.
Yes.
Look how fast it took between Capernaum, his ministry here, and within days, 5,000 people are already following him, coming to hear his word, being healed by him, spiritually and physically.
Yes.
So think of where we are. Maybe, they can think of all the healing they need in their life, where healing started.
Yes.
And again, I want to echo what Rabbi Nathan was saying, because we always keep on going back and forth. I'm an Orthodox Jew. I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Messianic Jew. But as a Jew, looking at Jesus as a Jew, we have no problem believing that he performed these healing miracles. Using Kabbalah, he was a rabbi. He was a man that was familiar with Scripture, which was really anointed with something divine. Healing people. That's something that historically we can actually have testimonies over. So think of these between walking these grounds, and again, you're walking on modern pavement, and there's this modern floating church. It's actually floating. It's 8 pillars floating over the center of what traditionally is believed to be the house of Peter's mother-in-law. And then as we walk these grounds, we're all going to meet now in the synagogue, reading a few more scriptures of Jesus' teachings. Think of what started to happen here in this small little fisherman town, maybe 80 families. You always think when you read probably scripture, the scale is probably huge. But that was it, a small fisherman town. 80 families, a couple of fishermen, first followers, and today over 2 billion people.
Come on in, guys. Please, come on over. I want to answer a burning question that came in. Come on in, guys. Over here. Because you're about to see where you're sitting right now. Come over here and sit down. Is there a method for my madness? This ain't nothing. He says it's hot. This ain't nothing.
I know.
It was 110 degrees when we were here, right here last time. This is nothing. There was a question that came up that was a brilliant question. She said, from the last place that we were at, what about like all my friends who have been divorced? Let me ask, who's been divorced? Wow. Okay. So my hand's up too, right? Okay. So what about all those who have been divorced? I said, what about it? What, does your church teach they're going to hell if they're divorced? Is that why is the question? Well, so that means that if we remarried, we committed adultery? Yes. And does he not, as far as the east is from the west, he remembers your sin no more? Everything is about bringing us to what? repentance and reconciliation with the Father. It is us humans that have used sin to judge another's sin. Come on. He was rebuking the legalism. He was throwing their legalism in their face. Pointing to what? Forgiveness. Because that's the heart of the Father. Is forgiveness. The word teshuvah, return. To who? Him. Return back to Him. So where you're sitting right now,
So a word about the synagogue itself, because many people feel that once they enter the synagogue, they are walking on the pavement from the days of Jesus. So I hate to disappoint you a little bit. In the city of David, I mentioned to you that usually what we find is the foundations. And in this case, what we found is the last time that this was used as a synagogue. So of course, if this was established somewhere around the 1st century BC, before Jesus' days, as Capernaum existed as a village, the actual part, you can see there's a small square over there in that corner. They left an opening. That's the area where there is the original level of the synagogue from the days of Jesus, 1st century. But after the event of Jesus here in Capernaum, the city continued to exist all the way till the 7th century, destroyed in the earthquake and then abandoned. So there was several hundred years that this was still used as a synagogue, and they kept on renovating and building. So these benches that you're sitting on, some of them are, by the way, original from the Byzantine period, 4th, 5th century. Some are restored. Some of the columns are original, again, a few hundred years after Jesus, with these Corinthian capitals, Roman capitals. But again, just like we talked about the palace of King David, which was established by King David, and we found the remains of the last years of them, of King Zedekiah, same thing with the synagogue. The synagogue lasted for hundreds of years. You know, I've been to Poland, there are synagogues there that existed for hundreds of years, but usually where we find them in the last phase of their function, before the destruction or before they were abandoned. Same case with this. What we know for sure is one thing. There was no other synagogue. Scripture that we're about to read now of Jesus preaching, speaking, reading from Torah in the synagogue, casting demons, was this physical space.
Yes.
Maybe the floor has changed, some renovations.
The wallpaper.
Exactly, the renovations, the benches, another donation to the synagogue, raising money. The synagogue, by the way, is the perfect synagogue with a proper orientation. Where is the synagogue facing always? No. East, always in America.
South.
Correct. In America, always east, because it's facing Yerushalayim. But any synagogue is facing to Yerushalayim. The Beersheba synagogue is not facing east, facing north. The Capernaum Capernaum synagogue is facing not east, because then you're going to be praying to Baghdad. It's facing south, Jerusalem. And the synagogues in Tel Aviv are facing just like the U.S. ones east. But the synagogue in the Dead Sea, or in Masada or in En-Gedi, is facing west. Because from where you're facing to Jerusalem. In this case, this synagogue, you entered from the south to the north, was oriented towards the south, towards Yerushalayim, which makes it all a perfect, authentic synagogue. After you understand where you are, and understanding this very space, this 130 feet between that wall and the other extended wall of the synagogue, was the physical place where Jesus entered the synagogue in Capernaum and left to heal Peter's mother-in-law. Now we can read scripture.
And this is the passage, the literal passage that he read under that sky, in this space, these exact words. Isaiah 61. It's my life scripture. My purpose. The Spirit of the Master Yahweh is upon me, because Yahweh has anointed me to bring good news to the meek. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim release to the captives and the opening of the prison to those who are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of Yahweh and the day of vengeance of our Elohim, to comfort all who mourn, to appoint unto those who mourn in Sion, to give them embellishment for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit, of heaviness, and they shall be called trees of righteousness, planting of Yahweh to be adorned. Yeah, you see in Luke 18, is where he grabs it. So what does he do? He grabs one of the scrolls and he reads it. The printing press was not yet created. So, but they had handwritten scrolls by scribes, which, by the way, guess what? Still exist to this day. There's still scribes that their job is to write out the Torah, still to this day, which is why a Torah costs anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000. It's the person's salary. It takes about a year to write it. Yes. So anyway.
But let's read from Luke 31 how he was speaking and teaching with authority in this synagogue in Kfar Nahum. 431.
431. Finding it. There we go. And he came down to Capernaum in the city of Galilee and was teaching them on the Sabbaths. And they were astonished at his teaching, for his word was with authority. And in the congregation was a man heavy in the spirit of an unclean demon, and he cried out with a loud voice, saying, "Ha! What have we to do with you, Yeshua of Nazareth? Did you come to destroy us? I know you, who you are, the set-apart one of Elohim." And Yeshua rebuked him, saying, "Be silenced and come out of him." And when the demon had thrown him in their midst, it came out of him without hurting him. And astonishment came on all, and they spoke to each other, saying, "What is this word? That with authority and power he commands the unclean spirits, and they come out." Right here. Right here.
And by the way, you mentioned reading from Isaiah. When he was reading from Isaiah 61, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me," the first time he read it was where?
Nazareth.
In Nazareth.
Yep.
And after that, he was reading this here.
Yep.
In Nazareth, he was rejected reading this.
Yes.
Reading this here, he was accepted. There's no prophet in his town.
Yep.
And that's where he knew that he can start his ministry here. Because that was the first time he read from Isaiah 61. But coming here, reading in the Sabbath, teaching, and reading from Isaiah, that was in this synagogue, and that was 100% fine. And that's where his ministry began, in Kfar Nahum. So as I mentioned from the morning, you're in the place of the cradle of Christianity. You're in the place where it all started, the first disciples along the shores, healing Peter's mother-in-law, casting demons from what we saw yesterday and here in the synagogue, many people coming to be healed, and ultimately leading up to the Sermon on the Mount, where we started in the morning, following by feeding the 5,000 with the 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. All within 3 miles of where we traveled this morning. So I know it's sometimes hard to get your head around it. I know that some of you have been reading this your whole life. You grew up on this. But walking in the footsteps of Jesus in his town in Kfar Nahum, on the Mount Beatitudes, sailing on the water yesterday, the same very lake that he sailed on with his disciples to the other side of the Gergesites. That's something that I know will sit with you very well for many years. We're going to make our way now out and head out to continue our discussions on the bus.
As we head out, I want us to do this. How many have ever walked and prayed?
Yes.
Walked and prayed.
Walked and prayed, right? Prayer walking. I think this would be like so good to do. Come, guys, we're literally like every place that you're walking while we are right here is not only our Savior, but also the many followers that he had. He was not the only one that casted out demons. He was not the only one that healed the sick. Remember? Who else did? His taught ones, his disciples also. So there's all kinds of miracles that happen right where we're walking right now. So let me tell you another Jewish tradition. When you need a miracle, Jan, you pray for somebody else earnestly to have the same miracle.
That's right. That's right.
You pray earnestly for somebody else. If there's somebody else that needs a miracle in their eye, you find that person, or if you know someone that needs that miracle in their eye, you pray earnestly. Because oftentimes we have no problem praying earnestly for someone else's miracle, but sometimes we have Jericho walls that stop us from praying for our own. Easier for us to believe for someone else's miracle, but often hard for us to believe for our own, right? Right? So as we walk out of here, what miracle does someone else need that you will fight while you walk? Because his miracle working power obviously has dwelled in this place as it has been in every place we've been to every single day. So let's go to the next spot of a great miracle you're going to witness of modern times.
About 5-6 years ago, I walked into this place for the very first time, and it was a dream and a passion of mine to bring you here. As soon as you are about to hear what you are standing on, what you have driven through, what you're about to walk through, I pray that the same thing happens in you that happened in me. You see, the more that you press in to get to know your Father, the creator of the heavens and the earth, the more his desires are planted inside of you, and your desires start to fade away, like the desires for cars and houses and junk. And you begin to get a love for the fatherless, the widow, and the sick. So I pray that today this affects you in a very powerful way. And I really want you to pay attention. No emails, please. Don't miss any ounce of what you're walking on, because you literally are walking on holy ground. You're literally you will walk through and witness the Bible being in action 4,000 years after the Torah was given, and where we're standing and eating from, and who has fed us today. This food is even more set apart, in my opinion, because of who helped to create it for you. Who served you today. King's Ransom has been helping to support this place. In fact, the day that I met the founder of this organization, the day I found out about it, immediately $5,000 was wired to it. And King's Ransom has supported this place for the last 5 or 6 years, however long ago that it was that I walked here. And we have not ever failed in a single month to help to support this place. Because it's one thing to take care of the orphan, the fatherless, and the widow, but it's a whole nother thing to do it in Israel. It's a whole nother thing to do it of the people of the seed of Abraham. That's a whole nother level, and that's who we were commanded to do it for.
You're standing at the epicenter of all of them, is the beginning of Migdalor. This was a forest, and the rabbi stood here one night, and he prayed, please God, let me be able to build something special for the children. And today we have, if you look around you, back and to the right is a drown building. That's one. Following it, where you see the building right over straight ahead of us. That way, that's 2. To the left is 3. I'm going by my left, I'm sorry. 3, and then around the corner, 4 different dormitories. There's around over 300 kids who live on this campus. So I live here full time. We have on this campus alone 2 high schools and a middle school program that just take place just on this campus alone. That alone is enough to keep us rather busy. But then on the other side of town, there's another girls' campus, another girls' elementary school. Down the street over here, another elementary school. You get in the picture. A lot going on, thank God. But a brand new project that's around the corner here that I was squinting just because of the sun. That the traditional dorm building, as you may or may not know, is you take a dorm, you fill with students, a family, each floor is a counselor. That's a dorm. That's a dormitory. Classic from time immemorial. That's a dormitory. But now the times are changing, and we had to come up with a new system. So the rabbi, together with the Ministry of Education, developed a new program called the Mishpachtonim. Mishpacha means family. Mishpachtonim means like a family kind of setting. What we have here now is, instead of just dorms with counselors, we have a family. Am I blocking the thing? No. I have a family and the kids. And 12 kids, a family and 12 kids. So when you have a wedding or a thing and you're inviting the Cohen family, You're inviting the Cohen family and their kids plus 12. You want to have you're making a family celebration, it's plus 12. Everything plus 12. Breakfast and dinner together at a big table. You'll see in a few moments at a large table. You have the family. Their full-time job is the kids. Industrial kitchen, oven, and fridge, everything they need, and they take care of the morning to night. They're with them. Homework, chores, whatever they need.
So I'm now walking in the reality of what I sewed into. Yeah.
So it wasn't even here?
No. The concept. No, they were talking about it. This is what our plan is moving forward, is to create these family units. Yeah, so, right? Yeah. And then many of you guys had the question of like, but who are the parents? They're kids who grew up here.
Oh, okay.
That's amazing. Kids that grew up here, who were orphans, who now are the parents over others. So they met here, got married here, had kids themselves here, and now are parents to 12 others. Totally biblical, totally cyclical. They know exactly how to handle the problems because they had the same ones. They know how to overcome them. And many of them started stores even, right? So all the businesses, not all of them, but many of the businesses that are here, have all been started by the kids who grew up here.
That's awesome.
Totally amazing.
Goes to show you there has to be love and joy and honor in this place for them to want to stay. 20,000 kids have graduated from the schools that have been built here. But
also this paint, also the art.
Yeah,
also
countless amount of kids have been impacted, as well as some of the food drives that they're doing and things like that. They said there's no way to count how many children have been affected since the day he opened his doors to those first 18 boys. The last time I was here 5 years ago, I said, it's over 100,000 children that have been impacted in some way, have been affected by what happens right here.
It just breaks my heart, but in a good way, to make me want to see what more I can do.
I hope you have completely enjoyed today's show as we've been filming right here in Israel. And every single time that we do a spiritual equipping, we get one consistent question, like, how do I hear God's voice? How do I get closer to Him? How do I walk with Him? And so we have put together a program it's called the Spiritual Seed Pack. And especially leading into the spiritual holidays that we're leading into right now, this is your time to be able to press your ear in. I don't know if you're in that place where you have felt like there is just a giant cement block above your head, straight up to the heavens, and you feel like your prayers are not being heard, or that you can't hear His voice, you can't connect to His presence. I promise you the Spiritual Seed Pack is going to be able to very simply lay it out for you so that you will be able to just go, oh, I get it. Because I promise you, friend, you're complicating it, and you're complicating it big time. And then there's, of course, the people who say, I heard God. In all reality, they heard their own voice. They heard their own selfish desires and their own flesh, if you will, and they've led themselves into destruction. And so if you want to bypass leading yourself to stupid places, and you also want to break that giant cement block that's between you and God, that you feel that giant big old thing, that barrier that is hindering you from feeling Him, trust me, friend, I have felt that throughout my walk with Him. The Spiritual Seed Pack is going to help you tremendously. It's going to uncover the mysteries of being able to hear from Him, and you are going to be so delighted, excited, and equipped to know when you hear His voice and when you're hearing your voice, and then of course the voice of the other, the enemy that you don't want to be hearing or be led by. So we've met you halfway. That is a major discounted price. Go to DaniJohnson.com/Israel 2018. Go to DaniJohnson.com/Israel 2018 to get your Spiritual Seed Pack today.
If this episode was an encouragement to you, go to DaniJohnson.com and share it with your friends now. You never know who else needs to hear it. This has been The Dani Johnson Show. Join us every weekday at 7 a.m. for more insights that will help you get to the life you've always wanted.